All right, guys. I want to go over these last few tutorial tools that um, I think pertain and will be useful, especially for the cover design. The first thing I want to go over is this idea of overlapping and layering of image and type. And again, this could be definitely useful for cover, but it can also be useful for any other large text that you're going to have that's going to be integrated into type in any of the articles that you're working with. So in this example here, I have this text laid on top of this photo, and you can see I basically want to have these elements that copy over and hide part of the letters. So this part of the apple covering the D, this one here covering the bottom of the H, and then this leaf going over the M and the R. All right. So, I mean, you could, spend a lot of time clipping out all of the foreground elements. But again, I mean, you're looking at, do you do something that takes 5 minutes or you do something that takes an hour? And what I propose is doing this option here, because this way then we can just isolate parts of the image. Now, in order for this to work, we need to save this background image as a PDF. Even though it's a full image, essentially what we're going to be doing is putting another image on top of it. And if one image is a TIFF and another image is a PDF, the two of them are going to cause issues with printing, and there'll be slight color changes that will be definitely noticeable to the viewer. So if we start with a PDF and end with a PDF for the two different files, it won't be noticeable. Okay, so first thing first, we right click the image, we go down to edit with and go to Photoshop. Pulls up the image here. And the first thing we need to do is layer from background, because right now it's a flattened image. So I need to pull in for my second monitor. Hold a sec. All right. So to do this, we right click and we hit layer from background. And you can just keep it as the default layer 0, hit OK. And now you can see that it's a layered file. So I'm going to throw that back. All right, now we need to clip. And to do this, we want to use a pen tool. Hold on one sec. Pull my tools. And then I also need my paths. All right, so we go to the pen tool. And we want to make sure up here, we want to make sure we're creating a path and not a shape. All right. And then down in the paths, we create new path. We can leave it as path 1. It's fine. And now we want to clip around the parts that we want to keep. So for this one, we only need this part of the apple. So I'll start up here. And that should be all we need. Yeah. I'll clip off a little bit more just to be safe. And then I need to clip this part of the apple. So I'll do this to there. Okay, I missed that little piece there. Come on. All right, and now we need this leaf part. I really should have did this before so you guys aren't bored watching me clip out um, these items. I'll be done pretty quickly. I think that's all I need. Yeah. And then, all right, so we close it. So now we have our 3 items that are clipped out. And then we go to our paths and we want to hold down Option Command. And you can see the key, my hand has like a little rectangle that comes up on top of it. When I select it, it makes that path into a selection. Now I'm going to hit Command Shift I and hit delete. All right, so now we're left with just those pieces that are going to go on top of the text. Hit Command D to deselect, and now we need to save it. You can't hit just save because then that will replace this background image in InDesign. So we need to save as, and save it as, you know, like version 2 or whatever it is you want to name it, and then hit save. Still as a PDF. And then we hit yes, settings, save PDF, preserve. And now we can close this. And then in InDesign, we now need to make a copy of this file. So we're going to select the background, hit Command C, and then paste in front by holding Command Shift Option V to paste directly on top of everything. And now, when I drag this new file that we have directly on top, it will place it right on top of the text. So now you can see the type is sitting here in between 2 images. So if I was to move this out, you can see there are the images, and here's the background image still there. All right. And the reason why this works is because we didn't change the physical size of the image. All right. So the PDF that's in behind is still the exact same size, and then the image on top, we didn't change the size either. Like we can't crop it down or anything. We need to keep it exactly the same size. So this way it lines up perfectly. All right. So that's how I recommend, you know, kind of creating these layered type treatments in any of your design. So I mean, if you wanted to have a person's head, like I said, on top of the title or the logo, you know, you just have to execute or rather isolate just that one part of the image that's going to be sitting on top of the text. All right, next, blending and transparency. All right, so for this, I think the best way would be to bring in a file from Illustrator. Hold on one sec. All right, I got this open. Let me drag it in. So I have it on my other monitor. Hold on one sec. So like I said, so you have your Illustrator file here. I have my InDesign file here. I'm just going to drag directly in from Illustrator into InDesign. So this way then it keeps it as a vector object. All right. Throw that back out. All right. So, all right. When you place something on top and you want to change how the transparency, say, you absolutely can just select up here, you know, hit 30% for the transparency. All right. Now, what I want to show you, let me get rid of this. That we don't need that anymore. What I want to show you is the difference between how things look when you affect how the image kind of basically blends rather into the image. So this here changes the file. I'm sorry, it changes the transparency. So we're going to make a copy over here. And now what I want to do, instead of just changing it to 30%, if I come up to here and hit transparency, and the default is normal for the mode, and then we hit multiply. Now, if you can see the red and see the difference of what the black does to the red. So by keeping it just normal and changing the transparency, it kind of dulls out the color because it takes that black color, drops it down to, in this case, 30%, and then it just leaves it at that state. When you change how it blends, and in this case, we're kind of using that multiply, it takes that red and smashes it with the black, with that 30% black. So this way then it's a more deeper red as opposed to just a gray being dropped on top of a red. So if you're going to ever do drop shadows or you're going to have watermarks or anything like that, definitely utilize your transparency tool. And there's a lot of different things that happen with how text is. Like, so even if, let's move the white back in here for a sec. So when we drop this in, if we were to play around with overlay, so you can see that it pulls the image from behind and allows it to interact with the text. All right. So, those are different options for using transparency and blending. Another thing too that is that you can see is that I want to show you are gradients. So a lot of times, like, you'll have a photo that maybe it doesn't have enough contrast for your text. And I'm talking about larger text, not, small readable text, but, larger type like this that is going to be put onto the image. So we create a rectangle, and then I'm going to fill it with black, and then I'm going to, up here, go to directional feather. No, I want gradient feather. Sorry. All right, so now you can see, the black starting here, moving over to the right. We hit OK, and then you can see the difference between normal as opposed to multiply. So if we keep it normal, and let me show you side by side option. So we drop this, send it to the back. All right, and then for these, we definitely want to drop it down because it's too dark. Maybe even less. All right. So now, this one here, we're going to keep as is. And then this one, we're going to change that transparency with the blending option. So go to multiply. And you can see, again, just like when we use this, how different it looks from one to the other, right? It allows like the color to come through. So even when you do not even just watermarks or bringing in an image, if you're going to start using some color, or rather in this case, black gradient to help make that text pop off the image, definitely always head to your transparency options and utilize multiply. There will be other times with other photos, like so say up here, I would, if I was having it come in from the green, I probably wouldn't use black. What I would end up using is one of the darker versions of the green in here. So this way then, it allows it to kind of use the color that's already in there. And you can actually, it does make a difference, rather than going all the way to the black, you allow yourself to use some of the color that's already part of the photo, and it works a little bit more seamless. All right. But you don't want to do that when you have, obviously, in this case, complementary colors happening. That's only when the background image is more of a monochromatic photo. All right, so we got that. Now I want to do bullet points. All right, so right here, I set this up to save some time. If you come to a point in your article that, you end up having bullet points and you just want to hit, option 8 and pull in your bullet points, you have this option here. But the problem with that is, you can see, if it drops down to a second line of text, it looks strange. It looks a little awkward, having that text dump in underneath. All right. So what you'd want to do is you want to isolate what your bullet points are, and there's a tab right here that will actually add the bullet points for you. So now we create, and so now you can see as the bullet points are sitting here, when it drops down to the second line of text, it stays in that line. So it's nice and neat and clean. So you can see, as you're reading down and you get into this paragraph and you get to your bullet points, the eye looks a little funky trying to get through this, where this keeps it much tighter and cleaner and easier to read. All right, so if you're going to use bullet points, and you're going to have lines of text, it's going to definitely drop onto a second line. Don't just have the option 8 for your bullet point. Use the bullet points that you can use for InDesign. And then there's also another option too. If you don't want the bullet points and you actually want to use numbers instead, you have that option as well. All right. Okay, so next, tabs. All right. So say you want to create a column and different rows, and you have this information that you want to showcase, right? And by default, this is terrible having this close and this far away. All right, so you want to utilize the tab option. So this way you control where the tab spacing is. All right, this is something if you ever design a menu, say, you will have to know this method. Okay, so with the text selected, you go up to type, and then you go to this option right here for tabs, and it pulls this up. It drops it right on top of your text. If it's already open and it's hanging out somewhere else, right, there's a little magnet right here in the bottom right. You click it, and it will automatically go right on top of your type. So by default, there's no tab set up, right? So once I click once here, you can see that first tab will now move. All right. Now, if you see what's happening with Texas and Florida, and how this is being pushed out, the reason that's happening is Texas and Florida being a smaller word as opposed to California, New York, and Georgia. These are actually on a second tab, right? So once I hit the second tab to change that last, you can see those are being pushed all the way out. All right. So all I need to do is go in and bring those back into line of where that is, because this is one tab. So if I delete, you can see it goes all the way back to Florida, and I hit once, and now it goes right to that very first tab where it is. All right. So this is how you would control all of the lines for where you want those columns to sit. Now, there are many times that you want to have dots in between your information. So, an example, think about menus and the name of the item, and the price being all the way on the other side of the menu. There's no way the eye is going to connect that price to the item name, right? So you have to add in these dots that connect them. Never, ever, ever do you just sit there and start hammering away at the period over and over and over again. All right, that's not what you would do. What you do is, with these selected and this first tab selected, you go into your leader and you hit a period and hit enter. And now you can see in that space, it adds in those dots for you. All right. Say for some reason you think the dots are too tight. So what you can do is you go in here, add a space after it, hit return, and now the dots are less. And it doesn't even have to be dots. It could be any symbol if we wanted to have this symbol. All right. And then if we want a different symbol for this one, then, we could have whatever we want between each of them. So each of these tabs can have its own leader running into it. All right. So that's the proper way of adding tabs. Now, the other thing I want to show you is, say we get, that's ridiculous. Let's get rid of that. Say we wanted to have something on the other side. So right now it's sitting here, but we actually want this to be right aligned. So instead of just hitting tab like this, if you hit shift tab, it will shove that last item all the way to the right-hand side of the box, right? So regardless of what number these are, it will stay right aligned right here, as opposed to having tabs sitting left aligned. Okay, so if you want it to be right aligned all the way to the end, same deal. You use instead of just hitting tab, it's shift tab. Okay, so that is that. And then the only other thing that I really felt was important was this. So you have your footer, you have your page number, and there's many times that you want to change the way the pages are being numbered, right? So say you want them, instead of just having 4, you want 04, say. All right, so I want to select everything, and then I want to go to here, and then this option here, numbering and section options. So when you pull this up, and you have your page numbering options right here, by default, it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you have this option here to change it to the 0. So then it adds a 0 in front of it. If you want it to be, I think there's even like Roman numerals. Yeah, we can even do Roman numerals. All right. So I think that's important too, because you don't want to feel that you're stuck with the default option of just 1, 2, 3, 4, and if you want to change it, because remember, I feel it's very, very important that you know how to add in the special character, current page number, to help number your pages. Otherwise, then it's going to take you forever if you're designing a couple hundred page magazine or brochure, and you got to like manually change those numbers. That to me would be a nightmare. But this here is how you could change how the page numbers look. All right. Okay, so that was it. That's basically all the tools that I wanted to cover for InDesign. There are definitely other tools in Photoshop that I want to cover, especially once I start seeing everybody's ideas of what they want to do for their cover designs. I want to go over a few things in Photoshop. But as far as InDesign is concerned, that's it. That is basically what we need to learn, at least for this project and going forward. All right, so hopefully this is helpful to all of you. If you have any questions, I'd be gladly go over any of these tomorrow during class. And all right, hope you guys are well, and I'll see you later.